Welcome to Prince Shortened House. Exercise number 63 and 64, Sir Kailash Chandra. 160 words a minute. Be ready? Start. You have rightly stated that the principle of this bill has been unanimously accepted by the House and most of the relevant points have been made out, and that no time of the House should be taken by repeating the same points again and again. One of the points on which I want to lay stress and which is being disputed again and again by the treasury benches is the question of cottage industries. Though you pointed out to them yesterday that there is provision in this bill to take into consideration the cottage industry also, and the Honorable the Deputy Minister realized it again. There was a point raised by Mr. Sidhwa today, and the Honorable Speaker, who was in the chair at the time, said that the scope of the bill is confined only to the consideration of protection to industries as against foreign industry, that is to give protection to the indigenous industries as against imported goods, and the question of cottage industry does not come in here. The Honorable Deputy Minister detailed this. Unless protection is given to indigenous industries, we shall not be able to develop industrially. I wholeheartedly support this proposition. I am not against it. When I speak of cottage industries, I do not for a moment think that our country should not be developed on the same line as the other countries in the world. I want that every villager should have the same amenities that we sitting in this house have. Every villager should have these furnitures, fittings, houses and so on. The only thing is that the existing economy should not be disturbed and sacrificed before substitute arrangement is made. Before we give protection to any bigger industry, the first thing we should consider is that the materials which are at present being produced in the villages to meet the requirements of our villages and on which the economic life of the villagers rests are properly safeguarded. We should see that we have sufficient quantity of consumer goods to meet the necessities of all people in the country, and nothing is done merely in the interest of 10% of the people at the sacrifice of existing village economy before making sure of some better substitute. I find that at the present moment our attention is confined to the amenities and requirements of a portion of the population only. The other day, my honorable friend Mr. Krishnamachari, whom I regard as a great economist and who knows finance etc., and looks to the interest of the country and gives very good advice, said that we do not want to go to medieval age and the luxury of yesterday is the necessity of today, and that few articles which we import today from many foreign countries and the few industries which we are starting for recreation and amenities of the people should not be grudged. I agree with him. I do not grudge them, but looking to the condition as it is today and the circumstances under which we are placed and over which we have no control, if we want to develop our country on the same basis as other countries have done industrially and otherwise, we do not have at our command all the necessary materials, and we simply cannot do it with the speed we want. We have to depend upon others. So at least during the transitional period, it may be that the necessities of yesterday may have to be regarded as the luxuries of today, and for some time have to take to austerity to be scarcely disturbed. I welcomed this bill most certainly when I went through it, but when the Deputy Minister was speaking, he probably overlooked to give scant attention one point. I am referring to clause 12 in regard to the reference to the Commission on matters arising out of protection. Of the things mentioned, there are different sectors of the country's economy on which the Commission may require and report. Whenever we start new industries and give protection to them, this clause is always neglected. We should not be merely that the central government may also refer, but they must refer to this as one of the conditions under clause 14. When the Fiscal Commission recommends this, Tariff Commission should take so many points into consideration. The different sectors of the country's economy must be one of the points that must be taken into consideration. The other day there was a question about the acquisition of the Visakhapatnam shipping yard, when we had to pay rupees 2 to 3 crores for acquiring it. Over of the points we took into consideration was the employment of 4,000 workers, and for keeping them in employment we suffered as a loss. In view of the agitation that was carried on, we sacrificed the existing necessary supply of the villagers and throw them out of employment without making any arrangement for their substitute requirement, and without providing them with alternative employment. Next para. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, may I, with your permission, intervene and say a few words in regard to the various matters that have been discussed. My colleague, the Finance Minister, who is in charge of this particular budget, will no doubt deal with the specific matters that have been raised in the course of this debate. I need hardly remind the House of the fact that although this budget is the individual responsibility of the Finance Minister, it is also the responsibility of the entire government and the Prime Minister. I am entirely responsible for it as well as any other member of the government. This budget was the government and the latter is completely committed to it. That does not mean that we are not willing to consider any new proposals. We certainly are, so long as the basic structure of the budget is not affected. My friend, the Honorable Professor Shah, pointed out various difficulties in the way of the debate here and in the way of consideration of the budget proposals. He pointed out how little could be done in the allotted time. I am in a complete agreement with him in this matter. If there are any practical proposals which would enable us to give more time for the consideration of these problems, either formally or informally, I am quite sure that the Finance Minister will gladly consider them. The real difficulty is, however, more basic, and that it is the kind of problems which the government has to face now is so vast and intricate that it is impossible for any democratic parliamentary assembly to give enough time for its consideration. It is just a question of time. This is not a new difficulty. I remember that long debates on this subject took place in a country like the United Kingdom, where they found that they could not get along with what is really the 19th century procedure in this 20th century of continuous crisis, social problems and international problems. So even parliamentary procedure in the United Kingdom has gradually changed, and many matters are left more to the committees than to the House itself. Usually a principle is decided by the House and its working out is left to committees. The House cannot find time to consider everything. That is a difficulty inherent in the situation. If we can find a remedy for it, it will not only be good for us, but maybe we will be setting an example for other democratically inclined countries who are seeking such remedies. In spite of the fact that Parliament is in continuous session, it is not able to find time to consider in detail all the important matters that come up. We have in fact much less time because we are not in continuous session. I suppose our session will inevitably become longer and longer, so as to enable us to deal with more and more problems and have more and more discussions. Anyhow, I have stated that the difficulty is at present. Though I am in sympathy with what Professor Shah said, I have no easy remedy for that difficulty except to say that we are perfectly prepared to consider together with the honorable members of the House any ideas or suggestions about how to give greater facilities for more intensive discussion of any great problem. As honorable member referred to the budget speech as being directly or indirectly survey of all manner of problems, domestic, international, economic, foreign, etc. The House can hardly expect the Finance Minister's budget speech to be a survey of all these tremendous problems, although they have no doubt some bearing on the budget. The world is becoming far too intricate and difficult for us to be able to keep the full picture in view always. As I listened to the honorable member who spoke just now, I was wondering whether we had the larger picture in mind or were getting lost in a few minor and secondary matters. For instance, having referred to the government's extravagance, and the honorable member went to say certain things in regard to our bringing forward a bill for giving a pension to the president. That signified to me an approach which I would call 100% wrong. Besides, I should have thought that the subject of pension for the president was hardly a matter for debate or a reference here. I say, even if this country is starving, even then you have to provide for our president. The honorable member perhaps preferred starvation for the president and himself. I certainly will not stand in his way, but we are considering graver matters than this, and the fact that such points are raised shown that we are not looking at the problems. We do not seem to be thinking of the vast problems that we are faced with and have to wrestle with the vast problem of the country's economy in relation to the world's economy. Stop.